Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time of day it is for you. And welcome to the first episode of Fabulously Creepy Stories. I am your host, I am the curator, I am the telltale storyteller. And tonight's stories we are taken straight from Creepypasta. So if you would like to read along, feel free to go to that website and check out the stories yourself. Now, it will be difficult for me to actually read the comments that you leave in chat while I'm reading the stories. So please have patience with me, and we will take periodic breaks so I can converse with you all. Now, first off, thank you, little DJ Curl, for being the first to join tonight's stream, and I hope you'll have a fabulous time with us. Tonight's first story is written by Harrison Prince. The title is It Escaped. I'm so sorry. Breakfast today consisted of 3 apples, a bowl of oatmeal without milk, 2 slices of toast smothered in butter, and a glass of orange juice. I set them all on the food tray and lifted. When I got to the door, I set the tray on a small table beside the handle. I twisted the deadbolt above the handle and opened the door toward me. It revealed a small room with a second door beyond it. The second door was made of reinforced steel, designed for safe rooms where people could hide in the event of an intruder. The door had been installed backwards, however. It kept it from getting out. Grabbing the tray again, I put it on the nightstand I placed inside the small buffer room. I raised my arms up and began at the top, twisting the deadbolt at the top of the door, and working my way down, the one just above the handle. Then I bent over and twisted the bolt that held the bottom of the door. The bolts were all well oiled and maintained, so they made very little sound. When these were all unlocked, I pulled a small key ring from my back left pocket. I turned around and closed the other door behind me, locking it with the key. A single bar bulb overhead lit the small buffer room. I slid another key from the ring into the final lock. It had a keyhole on both sides, preventing anyone but me from opening the particular door. Once the click told me it was unlocked, I put the key ring away, lifted the food tray, and used my elbow to turn the handle down. My hip easily pushed the door open. I swung it inwards on silent hinges, hanging over the wooden steps that led down to the basement. Before proceeding any further, I kicked the door closed from a few steps down, held the tray in one hand while I fished the key ring from my pocket and locked the door. Then I turned back around. I looked over the tray of food, down into the dim light. I can already say I'm quite intrigued as to what is in this basement. Hello Airthrow, welcome to the stream. The stairs went down in a straight line and went directly to the concrete floor. I'd intend to finish the basement one day. Now I never will. It was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps, standing there, watching me. The side of his face was illuminated by the single bulb I left on down there. It was a woman today, barely older than a teenager. I ignored his hollows, yet piercing eyes, and descended a few steps. It didn't move as I got closer. It was standing to the right of the stairs, so I was able to scoot past it. As I passed, I felt its heavy breath on my skin, and it turned its head to follow my movement. "Food's here," I said out loud. Walking to the heavy dining table I set up down there. I set the tray on the table and gathered up the pieces of the last meal. I saw the clear signs of partially eaten food that had been thrown down there. It ate just enough to live, then threw a tantrum. Looking at the woman by the stairs who was watching me, her arms hanging limply at her sides, you'd never think that it threw tantrums, but I heard them. I gathered what food chunks I could onto the old tray before pulling my flashlight from the back pocket. I turned it on and aimed it at his face. It didn't recoil or flinch. His eyes didn't blink or turn away either. Sweeping the flashlight around, I began my usual checks. I inspected the metal door over every window, ensuring that the welds were holding and looking for any new scratches. There were 10 windows originally in the basement. I had filled in 4 of concrete and intended to finish the rest when I had time. The remaining 6 were covered by 2 steel plates. One was welded on the inside, the other was welded on the outside. Layers were key. Layers kept it in. All the windows were fine and perfectly intact, so I turned to go back to the table. It was right behind me, and I almost ran into it, almost touched it. My heart was pounding, but it had done this before. It moved quickly and silently, trying to startle me, trying to throw me off guard. I found that my hand was already holding the taser, pointing the weapon at it. I saw his eyes fixated on the weapon as I put it back and walked past it. My reflexes had taken a while to become so good, but it was worth the training. Before I picked up the old tray, I skimmed my flashlight over the shelf hanging from one wall. There were 8 of them, just like they should be. 8 clear snow globes that were 6 inches tall with a plain white base and a single object sticking up from the base of the water. Satisfied, I picked up the tray and clopped up the stairs. It followed me all the way to the top, but stopped on the 3rd step down. I put the tray on the nightstand and turned around and closed the security door. It watched me, moving its head to maintain eye contact as I closed the door. With shaking hands, I locked every deadbolt and relocked the keyhole. Only after I tested the door with a quick bang did I relax. Turning around, I unlocked the entrance door and took the tray out. I locked the door back up and went to get ready for work. At night it panics. Something about nighttime makes it lose its calm. It loses its emotion, and it freaks out. I have to sleep with headphones on with loud music to cover up the screams, bangs, scratches, and tugs. The window and my door all hold tight, however. I'm not worried it will get out, but the noises are haunting. In the morning, I wake up at 6 a.m. and compile breakfast for it, 1 meal a day. I always go to bed before the panicking begins. I want to get the music started and fall asleep before the noise starts. 2 nights ago, however, I didn't use the bathroom before I went to bed. The urge to pee was too intense, so I got up. I took my phone with me to the bathroom, keeping the music playing through my earphones. Welcome, Shaolin, to the stream. I hope you're enjoying the story thus far. When I dried my hands from washing them, I caught my headphone cable and yanked the buds out of my ears. They fell to the floor, and I cursed in my sleepy stupor. Except the house was silent. No crying. No banging of fists on metal. No screams. The silence was more unnerving than the noise. I didn't want to, but I walked downstairs to the main floor. My hand automatically snatched my taser on the way. When I entered the living room, the door was shut. I twisted the handle ever so slightly so it wouldn't make noise. Locked. Good. Relieved, I walked back to the stairs until a horrible, terrifying thought snuck up on me. But is the security door locked? My foot stopped on the first step, and I looked back at the plain white door. It was only made of wood. If it managed to get through that, it would be free. I rubbed my eyes and carefully trod back to the entrance. I stared at it for a few minutes, looking for anything. After a minute, I pressed my ear to the door. Absolute silence. Hesitatingly, I removed the keyring from my pockets and unlocked the door. When I opened it, I was greeted by the security door. It was closed. The locks were all turned in the correct direction. It looked secure. Just to be sure, I walked into the buffer room and slammed my fist twice against the metal. It didn't budge. Immediately, a blood-curdling scream filled the other side of the door. Fist rapidly beat on the metal. The beating was so hard that I felt the door vibrating. I think I screamed. I definitely fell backwards, knocking the entrance door open and putting a hole in the wall with the handle. Rolling up, I slammed the entrance door hard and locked it tight. It took me hours to fall back asleep. I didn't bring it breakfast that morning. And then came last night, silence again. Except I didn't get up to investigate. No, I stayed in bed and tried my hardest to sleep. Once again, the silence was more unnerving than the sounds. This morning, I was exhausted. I got up a good hour earlier than I should have. I was going to be late to work, but I still prepared breakfast anyway. I made the same thing that I always did. 3 apples, a bowl of oatmeal without milk, 2 slices of toast smothered in butter, and a glass of orange juice. When I unlocked the door and set the tray down inside the buffer room, I inspected the security door. All the locks were in the correct direction, and it was shut tight. Good. I unlocked all the usual deadbolts on the security door, locked the entrance door behind me, and stuck the key into the security door. As usual, it opened with a silent ease. I descended a couple of steps, tray in hand, closed the door, and locked it with my key. When I turned back around towards the basement, I saw it. It was waiting at the bottom of the stairs again, but a little further into the shadows. It was different today. I could tell that the new pants it wore. The shadows hid his face from the angle. I took the steps one at a time. I reached the concrete floor. Food's hit. I started, but my last syllable caught in my throat. It was Sarah today. It was never Sarah. There were 7 others to choose from. It had never, ever chose Sarah. I closed my eyes, sucked in a deep breath, and walked toward the dining table. I could feel Sarah's eyes on my back as I set down the tray. Oh, well, welcome to the stream, Shay. I hope you're having a positively wonderful night. And yes, and thank you for the follow, Asbestos Pete. Azarus, long time no see. I'm glad you're all enjoying the story so far. I hope you are. I find it quite fabulous. The meal from 2 days ago was completely untouched. That struck me as odd. It should be hungry. It should have eaten. Why didn't it eat? Regardless, I put down the new tray. I slid my flashlight out of my pocket and clicked it on. I aimed it into Sarah's face like I usually did. That was a mistake. My breathing intensified and my heart rate skyrocketed. Sarah was just like I remembered. 29. Beautiful hair, plump lips, attractive curves, and an ever-present smile that was so slight it was nearly invisible. Even her eyes was gorgeous, despite the creature's inability to change its eyes. Sarah took a step towards me, and I dropped the light from her eyes. Time to check the windows to be done with it. I went from one to another, inspecting them. No new scratches or marks. Hands suddenly wrapped around me, and I froze. Sarah's hand slid under mine, and I felt their way around my chest. Her smell intoxicated me, and for a minute I was transported back in time. We were at the beach, and she was standing behind me with her arms wrapped tightly around me. "This is nice," she said into my back, muffled. "Yeah," I sighed with a smile. Her hands lowered into my pocket to retrieve my phone. She laughs as she tries to unlock it without being able to see the screen. I take it, unlock it, and give it to her. Her head leans around my shape to view the screen and turn on the camera app. She holds out the phone and we pose for a picture. The camera clicks, and our images are frozen on the screen. Sarah lets go and runs away. I pursue. This is just a short break for now, so I can catch up with what everybody's saying in chat. I truly want to know if the stream is going well. Now let's see what I have missed thus far. Asbestos, I quite love that creepy little gif. Yes, and I am glad you approve of the mask. It's an oldie, but it's a goodie. Yes, Atheris, it is just a natural voice that comes from dreams and nightmares. Oh yes, it is quite fabulous. Congratulate 300 followers. Yes, I just noticed I have broken the 300 follower mark. Thank you, everybody. And if you have missed the name of the story, Shay, the story is called It Escaped. I Am So Sorry. You can find it on Creepypasta. That's where I get all these stories from. Now, let's continue. It shrieked as it scrambled for the stairs. I shoved it, and it tripped, landing against the stairs. Sarah tried to take the stairs on her hands and knees, but I grabbed her leg and pulled her back. Her noises were inhuman, and she screamed at me. One of her legs caught me in the nose, and my grip loosened. I fell back on the concrete floor, clutching my nose. Blood poured down and covered my hands. Through the dim light, I saw it reach to the top of the stairs and began to unlock the security door. With the keys, she slipped out of my pocket. "No!" I yelled angrily, pitching forward towards the stairs. It screamed when it saw me coming. I snatched the taser out from his holster, and I held it ready as I ascended. The security door opened, and Sarah slipped through the crack to the buffer room. I was halfway down the stairs. The security door was ajar by just a few inches when I reached it. I struck my arm at the door just as Sarah tried to pull it closed. We fought over the door, but I heard it jangling the keys and trying to unlock the entrance door. I managed to force the security door open just as it opened the entrance door and slipped out. Fear rose in my throat as I threw myself through the buffer door and into the living room. The front door slammed shut, and I raced towards it. When I opened the door, it was nowhere to be seen. I didn't even know which direction it had gone. I panicked and threw a tantrum for a few minutes. Then, like a robot, I got ready for work and left. During lunch, I came home. I inspected the basement thoroughly again. Nothing out of place or damaged. The food I left behind was the same. It wasn't in the basement. For some reason, I had to verify that it was truly gone. Now it's free. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm so sorry. I can fix this. I can. The basement was the same, but the shelf. The shelf was different. Instead of 8 snow globes, there were now 9. Slowly, I walked to the wall and picked the new glass sphere off the shelf. The new one was exactly the same as all the others, except for the figure sticking out of the base in the water. It was a little girl, no more than 8 years old. The others all contained adults. The girl was walking forward into the watery globe. Her arms were wrapped around herself as if she was freezing. Her body pitched forward as if she were bracing herself against the strong wind while she walked. Despite going nowhere, she walked perpetually forward. It had gotten another one. Now, there were 9 to choose from. It had come back and left the snow globe to remind me that it was free. It had come back just to taunt me. Some of you have asked how this thing came into my life. I've edited the post to include that story. It's not as clean as the first one, I know. I'm kind of in between strategy planning and preparation. 3 months ago, I came home from work and Sarah wasn't there. No phone call, no text, no notes, nothing. Just a snow globe on the floor in the kitchen, laying on its side. I looked at it, and it was pretty clearly Sarah walking through the invisible wind, just like the child I described previously. It's down on the shelf now, but while I was waiting for Sarah to turn up home, I watched the globe. I was misled by the television shows. You can report someone missing before 24 hours have passed, but I didn't report her missing, yet she turned up before the 24 hours were up. The front door opened as I sat in the living room couch, watching the snow globe figure. Sarah poked her head through the front door, and I jumped to my feet. She entered warily, and looking back now, She was eyeing the snow globe on the couch. I asked her where she been and what has she been doing, but she didn't speak. She just walked past me towards the globe. The backpack I hadn't noticed before was lowered into her hand and she unzipped it. When she picked up the globe, intended to put it in the bag, I grabbed her backpack. I didn't get it away from her, but it tipped over and 7 globes rolled out. Each of them had people. That's when it really clicked that something was wrong with Sarah. She turned on me angrily. Only it wasn't Sarah anymore. It changed in the blink of an eye. I didn't even notice the change until the man was grabbing my neck and shaking me. I punched him on the side and he flinched. Tripping over the globes, I scampered out of the way while he ignored me and picked up the globes quickly. I pushed him over, and he rolled onto the carpet. I knew the globes were important now, so I grabbed one in each hand and ran for the bedroom. If I could lure him up there, I could use the taser in my nightstand. It worked, and it chased me up the stairs once I saw what I was carrying. It was hot on my heels as I got to the top and threw one of those globes at it. He caught the globe in one hand, and I felt myself go pale at his reflexes. Quickly, I raced into my room, slammed the bedroom door, and flicked the handle lock. It was jiggling the handle only seconds later. I snatched my taser from the bedside table and tried to breathe. The snow globe was placed in the drawer and I shut it. Going to the door, I readied myself and unlocked the handle. The man was through the door immediately, and I pressed the taser to his side. He immediately stiffened and then dropped to the floor and spasms began to kick out. I pulled my belt off and restrained his wrist. My closet provided some of Sarah's scarves that I used to add to the wrist restraints and tied his ankles together loosely. I tied them loose enough so he could walk, but not run. When his spasms had calmed, I demanded that he stand and pull his arm to make him stand. He complied. Eyeing the taser, I brought him downstairs and cleaned the globes up in front of him, stuffed them in the backpack. Then I tied him to the chair in the dining room and tried to get some answers. No threat worked but a taser. He resisted being cut, punched, kicked, or yelled at. But the threat of the taser made him flinch. Regardless, he didn't speak. He didn't tell me where Sarah was, why he looked like Sarah, what the globes were, or why Sarah was inside one. Even when I tased him in the chair, he didn't say a word, just screamed. I moved him to the basement after the second scream. I have neighbors, and I know the basement is a good sound buffer. Once he was secure in the chair down there, and the chair was tied to the stairs, I kept trying to make him answer. Nothing. I went upstairs to take a break from I'm so sorry. I went upstairs to take a break just as the sun was setting, and then he started to scream. I came down to him, trashing and wailing against the bounds. Every vein in his body was popping out, and his eyes were wild and frenzied. I just ran back upstairs because it filled me with the most intense fear as I ever felt in my entire life. Being upstairs muffled the screams, but didn't make them stop. So I left the house and went to the hardware store. The sounds were swallowed up by the house, and you couldn't hear it outside. That gave me the confidence to leave. I knew that it wasn't human, and that I was going to have to lock it up until I figured it out. So I bought nails, plywood, and a second door with a deadbolt and lockable handle. When I got home, I was still freaking out, but restrained. I boarded up the stair windows with an excessive amount of nails. I installed a second door where the security door was now. I tried to make it talk and shut up or anything, but it just kept wailing and screaming and pounding its feet on the floor. I locked it in the basement, still restrained, and went to sleep. In the morning, it was quiet and unmoving. I thought it was dead, until it swiveled its dark eyes to watch me in sullen silence. I tried to get answers again with my newly charged taser, but nothing worked again. I fed it a little, but left it alone during the day. I called in sick to work and just stayed at home, trying to search online for anything. I had no idea what to search for though. When I went downstairs, it was freed from the chair. It had its back against the far wall and watched me as I descended. It was a woman this time, which startled me. I berated myself mentally for not checking its restraints, but it hadn't escaped the basement. Then I saw the hole in one of the plywood sheets over the window. It had punched a hole straight through both plywoods and the glass. That incident made me step up to my security. It was one event after another. I replaced all the plywood with steel plates that were screwed in. I used his fingernails to unscrew them and almost finished. I welded all the plates to the steel frame and fitted them to the windows. It still punched holes in the new door. I installed the security door with only 2 locks. I found that pressing the sliver of wood into the cracks of the door in the door to push open the deadbolt locks. It had unlocked 2 out of the 3 by the time I found it. Then, I started filling the windows with cement, installed more locks, and made one of the locks have a key on both sides. Then an attempt to escape ceased, and it just stared at me whenever I came down to ask for answers. Every day I came down, it would make his hand into a spear and hold it out to me. I knew what it meant. Give me my globes. Give me my snow globes. The scariest part was the snow globes. I had put them in the closet upstairs after inspecting them for a month, but to no avail. All the security measures were in place, and it hadn't tried to escape in days. Every night it would scream, cry, bang, hit, and screech. And then, one day, I went to bring it food. And there they were, all arranged perfectly, spaced on the shelf. It stood in the corner when I came down and watched me. I threatened it with a taser as I went forward to grab it. But it ran at me and shoved me into the wall. I held the button on the taser, ready to make contact when it got too close, but it stayed back and watched me. Every time I moved toward the globes, it rushed me and halted before it got into arm's length. Then would retreat and watch me again. I left the globes alone after that. I checked, and the globes were gone from my closet. The backpack left behind. Even the one in my nightstand was gone. It hadn't seen me put it there. The most worrying part was how it got to retrieve the globes. And if it was able to get them, why didn't it leave? I still have no idea. My only plan now is to wait for it. If the snow globes are that important, it'll come back for them. I gathered all, and I plan to bury them in the basement before covering it with cement tonight. The one I have left, I plan to mail to P.O. Box I bought online in another state. I'm keeping it because I don't want to bury it. The one is Sarah. I'll be buying a few guns, and when it comes back, I'll be as ready as I can. If I can shoot it, that is. If I have the guts. And there was a break in the story right there, which I think is good to break for now, for at least a few minutes. Let's see what we have here in the chat. Oh, it seems I have missed quite a lot. Oh, and thank you so much for the donations. Thank you very much for the diamond, Azarus. Jealousy of the beard. Well, the beard I did not choose. The beard chose me. And I did turn off the sounds for the alerts. I didn't want anybody to get distracted during my story time. I will turn them on again for future streams, but not the storytelling streams. And I see you're all enjoying yourselves in the chat. It's okay, Shay. I'm glad you showed up. Hope to see you again soon. And welcome to the stream, Stark King. Yes, I am actually wearing the fabulous mask. Now, let's get back to the story. I like nothing more than to put this all behind me, but maybe sharing it will help me feel better. I was right. It did come back for the snow globes that I buried. but not before getting Sarah's globe. I called the post office where my P.O. box was, and they confirmed that no package had arrived. That was painful to hear. Before Sunday, I had set up quite a few preparations. I borrowed one of my co-workers' shotguns for a couple of weeks, set up curtains and boards on every window, and kept my doors locked at all times. I would have brought steel plates for all the windows upstairs, but they were too expensive and laborious to install. Sunday night, it showed up. I woke to a scream, a very familiar scream. It was 4 in the morning, so I had still been in a temper tantrum mood. I had expected it to come during the day, when it could control itself, so I was caught by surprise. As I walked down the stairs, I tried to use the screaming to figure out where it was. The sound was muffled, so it was clearly outside the house. Luckily for me, the screaming would alert my neighbors too, and the cops would be called. I considered calling them myself, but I didn't want to lose concentration. A pounding was suddenly at my front door. The screaming was in the backyard, so I assumed it was my neighbor coming to complain before they could call the police. Shotgun in hand, I answered. When I opened the door, it definitely wasn't any neighbor. The tall figure at the door lurched through, shoving me to the ground. I gasped as my last breath, and I placed the thick hand on my neck and held me down while it leaned over me. The shotgun fell to my right, half buried under the couch, all while the screaming continued in my backyard. I saw that it was a very tall, black man, though I doubted it was human. It ran its hands over my pockets until it found my keys to the house. It stuck 2 fingers into my pocket and ripped it open to access the keys rather than pulling them out. When it clutched the keys, it made a yell of its own. It sounded just like any guy yelling out. The voice didn't even sound supernatural. Nevertheless, it chilled me to my core. Watching something that you know isn't human make a human noise, it's horrifying. It's like watching a cat look at you, open its mouth and say, "I'm going to kill you tonight," before slinking away. After the man yelled, the screaming moved around the house until the same man I fought before came through the front door. It had gone quiet as he walked up to the porch. He came in. He slammed the door shut. The thing holding me down tossed the key ring to the original man and caught it. There were 2 of them. When the tall man looked back at me with dull eyes, I thought I was going to die that night. We listened as the original man unlocked the basement 1 lock at a time. It wasn't moving like it was in a hurry. It flicked each lock with care, flinching when it clicked. With the key ring, he unlocked the security door and pushed it open. He gasped in pain and descended quickly. I watched his body get swallowed up by the darkness. "He won't find the snow globes," I said to the one holding me. He turned his gaze from the doorway and looked at me. His eyes were the same as the original man's. I mailed them away. And then it smiled at me. But it smiled looked forced. Not forced, as in it didn't want to smile, but more like it had a new face and it was learning how to control it. I repulsed. There was a scream for the basement that reverberated all the way to where we were. The thing's expression flickered for half a second. I reached out my hand, grabbed the butt of my gun, and slammed it into the side of the tall man's face with one hand. It screamed like a 5-year-old and fell to its side, releasing my neck. I tried to get to my knees and whirled the gun around, but it was faster. It slapped the gun out of my hands and it hit my boarded front window with a loud bang. There was a loud slap, and I was suddenly on the ground. I realized that the tall man had slapped me across the head and sent me careening to the ground. I must have been unconscious for a little while, because the tall man was gone, but I could hear them moving around downstairs. I got unsteadily to my feet. The shotgun still laid under the front window, so I picked it up and walked to the basement entrance. As soon as I crossed the threshold into the buffer room, the basement was silent. No more scruffling, no more movement. It was pitch black down there, and the doorway to the basement didn't let any light in. Hesitantly, I took one step down the stairs. My foot made a solid thud. I could hear them breathing heavily down there. I stepped back up. I grabbed the security door and swung it shut. I flicked all the locks as fast as my trembling hands would allow. I heard them banging, screaming insanely, and rushing up the stairs. Their footfalls sounded like a landslide racing towards me. I managed to turn 3 locks before they slammed against the door. The metal absorbed all their punches, letting out a metallic reverb with every blow. Shaken, I twisted every lock and stepped back, gun in hand. I could have sworn I heard "Let me out" from the other side, but it could have easily been my imagination. It was noticeable when one of the pounding creatures stopped beating the door. It kept screaming, but stopped hitting. I didn't hear the keys jangle, but I watched the top lock slowly turn to my right. My heart leapt into my throat and I realized that they still had the keys. The second deadbolt turned, the third. I jumped forward and turned the top lock back into position. The pounding resumed again, this time making a pinging sound as the keys struck the metal door. I locked the second and third deadbolts again. This time, I started from the bottom and flipped the deadbolt. I realized that we could keep doing this all night, but it wouldn't solve the problem. If the police would hurry and show up, someone else could handle this. The other one stopped hitting the door, which changed the atmosphere from deafening to silent. Only the small clicks of the key entering the lock and twisting were audible now. Not good. They had a plan. I kept flipping the locks back into position, much to the creature's frustrations, but tried to listen to what the other was doing. I couldn't hear anything. The metallic clang that was familiar only from movies startled me. No way. There's no way it could fit in there. I could feel vibrations in the floor as the metal bumps continued. I stepped out of the buffer room for a moment and watched the floor and feel the vibrations. It was climbing through the vents. The vents in my house would never, ever fit a human being. You know how sometimes you can tell where something is based on sound alone? I could practically watch the creature's progress as it moved through the vents towards my utility closet, where the vents were accessible. I wanted to run over and blockade that door, but if I left, the other one would get past the security door. Stepping back into the buffer room, I flipped the 4 locks that it had managed to undo, and it shrieked angrily at me. Darting back out of the buffer room, I watched my suspicions come true as the door to the utility closet burst open. And a writhing mass fell onto the floor. Half of it was still in the vents, as it surged its way forward along the carpet. The creature had changed into a bag of skin. That's the only way I could describe it. If you made a bag of human skin, hair and all, and packed it with bones and moved as if you wanted to escape and break through your own skin, you'd see what I saw. The bag expanded from its smaller shape and had fit through the vents. And the bones that were so close to bursting the layers of skin came together, until the arms and legs emerged. Skin peeled backwards and revealed a head that twisted back and forth, as if fixing a pain in its neck. Its face hadn't finished forming. Like a newborn child in the womb, his eye sockets were indented, but the eyeballs hadn't yet formed behind the skin, nor had the skin split to allow blinking. It stood with some difficulty, putting a hand on the wall to support itself. Its mouth opened, ripping holes in the skin. It sounded like rubber bands snapping. Despite having no eyes, it zeroed in on me and lurched in my direction. Its skin was changing to the color of the black man who attacked me. Its hair was slowly curling out of its skull as it approached. Just as I raised my shotgun, the security door ripped open, and the original man flew at me out of the darkness. It tackled me from the left, and we fell to the ground. The man immediately began to throw another tantrum, hitting and punching me, screaming all the while. The screams weren't from a man. They were from a little girl. It made the blinding fury so surreal that I began to disbelieve that what I was experiencing was real. The assault stopped so suddenly that I was surprised when the next blow didn't come. I opened my eyes to see the two of them running out of the door into the night. The black man had a backpack all along with all his clothes. It confused me, because the attack couldn't have been more than a couple of minutes. The door stayed open while I laid on the floor, aching and groaning. It took me a while to get back up and look downstairs. I spotted where I buried the globes that had been torn open. The pickaxe laid in the corner, untouched. There were finger-sized grooves in the concrete, as if they'd been digging through it like Play-Doh, not concrete. The snow globes were gone. My trap was sprung, and I had nothing to show for it. No bodies, no captured monsters, no evidence. Nothing. I failed, and once again, they've escaped. They have no reason to come back, unless they want to kill me. But if they wanted to kill me, they would have done it. They didn't take advantage of so many opportunities. I still don't understand these things. I don't know what they want. I don't know everything they can do. I don't know why the snow globes are so important, and I don't know how to fight them. I can't do anything to help Sarah now. They must be long gone now, and they have nothing holding them here. I had to find some explanation for where Sarah had gone. If I don't, I could be blamed. The nightmares are bad, as you expect. I wake up to think that I see one stand in my doorway, but nothing there ever is. I haven't gone back to the basement. I leave the security door locked because deep down, I'm afraid if I leave it open, one day I'm going to come down the main stairs and see her standing motionless at the bottom, following me with her intense eyes. And that is the end of the story. Oh, well, looky here. Thank you very much for the diamond, little DJ girl. See, Nazareth, if only you were wearing the Warshak mask. I do, in fact, have the Warshak mask, but it does not agree with the beard. And I'm so glad to see that you are enjoying the stories. I do have a few more, and I think I'll read at least one more. It is much shorter than the previous tale. Again, from Creepypasta, this is written by The Lost White. You can't trust everyone. November 6, 2015. Oh boy! I'm not really sure how to properly start these types of stories, but I'm going to try to get to the point as fast as possible. See? I'm kind of on a timer here. I'm currently writing this on one of those computers in the library at my college. As I type, I feel like I'm being watched from the shadows. I know it sounds crazy, but I need to get this story out somehow. Nobody here will believe anything I say. I'm falling behind on all my schoolwork to the point where I might be put on academic probation. I also got fired from my part-time job because I was scaring the customers. Anyways, I want to at least do something so I can tell myself this was all worth it. Even still, it might not even matter at the end. Last year, I met a guy named Jack Driscoll. He was a pretty chill dude, for the most part, and we actually became pretty good friends. My name is Ethan, by the way, and I'm currently finishing up my senior year in college. Well, trying to finish up my senior year. Anyway, as I was saying, Jack and I started becoming good friends after we found out that we were pretty much into all the same stuff. We both liked the same type of video games, same movie genres, and even the same taste in clothes. I had other friends, sure, but nobody that was interested in the same things I was. Sadly, that all changed last winter. Jack started hanging out with a girl from one of our classes named Alyssa. It wasn't long before he asked her out, and the two became an item. At first, I was happy for him. He never had best luck with the ladies, so it was nice to see him with someone who genuinely liked him. We would all hang out from time to time, and she came off as a really nice girl. Hell, I even found myself getting a little jealous. About a month into the relationship, I noticed things started to change. Jack would stop hanging out with his friends and spend more time with Alyssa. At first, I figured this was normal. A lot of people want to spend more time with their significant other. There really isn't anything wrong with that. I'd still see him, yeah, I'd still see him and play video games online together after class, so I didn't think much of it. Then, things started to change. Things started to get weird. One morning, the two of us were waiting in line at the cafeteria, and the food in our school wasn't the best, but it was fine for what it was. We got there a little late, so the line was already pretty long, but nothing we weren't used to. Guess we should have gotten here earlier, huh? I laughed. Jack didn't say anything. Hey, buddy, you still asleep? I joked as I nudged his shoulder. Shut up, he murmured. I was taken aback at his response since he sounded genuinely angry. I'm only joking, I explained. Did you not get enough sleep last night or what? This line is too effing long. I need to get out of here. Some of the other students started to look at us. Jack realized this and turned around. You got a problem? He yelled at one of the girls behind us. The girl froze and grabbed her friend's hand. Dude, what the heck? Calm down, I yelled back. I had no idea why he was acting like this. It wasn't like him at all. Jack didn't say a word. Instead, he just turned towards the door and ran out of the building. After that incident, I didn't talk to him. I didn't try to get his attention in class for a while, but it was no use. After a few days, I stopped trying altogether. After a week, Jack stopped showing up to class. One night I ran into Alyssa in the hallway. I was done with classes for the day and I was ready to head back to my apartment. Hey, Alyssa, I said with a smile. Oh, hi, Ethan, she said, smiling back. For some reason, her smile sent a chill down my spine. Why did she seem so happy when her boyfriend was clearly not doing well? I adjusted my backpack before I spoke again. So, what's up with Jack? Is he okay? Alyssa looked up, almost like she was thinking of the answer to a math problem. She turned back to me and answered cheerfully. He's perfectly fine, she said with a grin. He's actually better than ever. Oh, okay, I said, clearly unconvinced. Well, in that case, can you tell him that? She interrupts. Better than ever. This startled me. I wasn't sure why, but something about this girl suddenly felt sinister. She walked away, leaving me standing there in my confusion. I snapped out of the weird trance I was in. This is stupid, I thought to myself. I'll just try calling him again. I had called him before, but stopped trying to when I was convinced he wouldn't pick up. That night, I decided to call him up and asked if I could come over. To my surprise, he answered immediately. Yo, Jack answered. Hey man, what's up? I asked. What do you want? Is everything okay with you? You seem off lately. Silence. Hello? Are you home? Yeah, what? I'm coming over. After Jack told me he was on his way, the call ended. I'm not going to lie, I was pretty scared. The tone in his voice sounded panicked, almost like he was trying to get out of whatever situation he was in. About 45 minutes after the phone call, I heard a knock on my door. Hey, I said as I greeted Jack at the door. What's up? I tried to remain as calm as possible. It was obvious once I saw him that something was seriously wrong with the guy. I don't know, he whispered as his eyes darted back and forth. Are you alone? I nodded my head and let the poor guy in. He sat down on the old couch that I had set up in front of the TV. My roommates were out for the night, so I wasn't really worried about anyone coming back anytime soon. Dude, what is going on with turn off the lights? I froze for a minute. Jack, you're scaring me. What's turn off the lights? He can't find me, I did as I was told. This has turned out to be worse than I thought. Are you talking about Alyssa? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Did she do something to you? Jack didn't answer. I put my hand on his shoulder. Dude, I want to help you, but there's nothing I can do if I don't know what's going on. Jack was violently tapping his fingers on his legs. He continued to stare at the ground as he answered me. There's something wrong with her, man, he whimpered. I think she's, like, part of a cult. I raised my eyebrows. I could tell he was scared. This was a little much, even still. She must have done something pretty messed up for Jack to think this way. Why do you say that? I asked. Also, have you asked anyone for help? If she's scaring you that badly, you know you can go to the police, right? I can't! He jerked his head to face me and I almost threw up. Jack was crying, but his tears were black. I thought I was seeing things at first in the light, but he confirmed my suspicions with what he said next. She did this to me. I don't know how, but I know it was her. He continued to cry, the black liquid staining the couch cushions like ink. The other night, she caught me crying this gross effing tears and said I was ready. What the F is that supposed to mean? I don't know how to answer him. This was totally beyond my realm of understanding, and I knew there was nothing I could say to give him any relief. Well, we'll figure something out, I said after a minute of total silence. But we should call the police. You should also go to the hospital. Whatever is going on with your eyes can't be good and needs to be looked at. Jack wiped his face with the sleeves of his hoodie. She can't find me, he said, calming down a little. If she finds me, I'll... Jack fell silent as we heard a soft knock on the front door. Jackie? I know you're in there. It was a girl's voice. It's time to go. They're waiting for us. Your friend could come too if he wants to. Jack sprung up from the couch, ran towards the back door, and disappeared into the woods behind my apartment. Jack! Wait! I yelled. It was useless. I raced after my friend while dialing 911 on my cell phone. I told the police what just happened, and they assured me officers would be on the way as soon as they could. Before I could respond, something hit me over the head and I blacked out. What happened next still seems like a horrible nightmare, but I know what I saw was real. When I eventually came to, I was tied to a tree trunk. There were several figures standing in a circle around me, and there was a figure strapped to a chair. As my vision returned, I could see that each figure was wearing a long black robe and a blue mask. I focused on the figure in the chair. It was Jack. I tried to scream, but my mouth was taped shut. I finally came to the horrid conclusion that I was not only present in the middle of the cult meeting, but I was about to witness a human sacrifice. One of the cultists walks towards Jack and lifts the mask. It was Alyssa. Grabbing his chin, she pulled his face close to hers and gave him a kiss. She pulled back and began swearing at the girl. I didn't blame him. I had a couple things I wanted to say myself, but I couldn't due to my own restraints. Another, taller cultist began to read from an old black book. As he read, a number of other cultists swarmed Jack like hungry vultures. One cultist taped his mouth shut, while two held him down to the chair. I watched in horror as the fourth cultist pulled out a rusty-looking tool. The cultist plunged the tool into Jack's eye, slowly tearing them out. The blood that washed out of his eye sockets appeared thick now, like tar. To finish it off, the cultist had taken Jack's eyes, fixed the blue mask to his face. He was still alive, but for how much longer I had no idea. As the one cultist kept reading from the book, the ground beneath Jack began to tremble. Black tendrils sprouted up like demonic weeds. Some of the tendrils wrapped around his waist, others his ankles. One even plunged down into his throat. I was beginning to pass out. Suddenly I heard sirens in the distance. This caused the cultists who were reading to stop. "What are you doing, you idiot?" one of the other cultists screamed. "If you stop now, he'll—" The ground stopped shaking, and the tendrils retreated back to wherever they came from. Everyone was silent. The cultists all seemed to freeze and, for a moment, almost looked like statues. The silence was soon broken by faint, sinister laughter coming from Jack. "You made him mad," Jack hissed. These were the last words I ever heard my friend say. I watched him break free from his bonds like they were nothing. Jack charged each cultist, tearing at them and splattering their entrails all over the forest ground. My vision started to go, and the sounds of screaming cultists seemed to fade into the distance. I only wished that I totally passed out before hearing the horrible crunching, the sounds of bones breaking and the organs being devoured. My former friend was eating his captors, and I was sure I would be next. I woke up to the police officer shining his light on my face. "He's up! Quick! We need a paramedic over here!" I sat up and looked around. "I'm alive," I mumbled, still in a haze. "I know you went through some stuff, kid. But is there still anything you could tell us about what happened?" the officer asked. "Leave him alone," said another officer. "We can question him after we get him out of here. The kid's got a massive cut on his side." "Right. Sorry, kid." I looked down and noticed my shirt was soaked in my own blood. I couldn't feel anything due to my current state, but it looked bad. I didn't speak the entire way to the hospital. I didn't know what to say. Things got even worse when the doctor told me that while I would survive, I was missing one of my kidneys. It's been a little over a year now since this all went down. Everyone has already heard about it, and the news and the school came under some heavy fire for not noticing something this big happening near their own campus. Jack Driscoll is still missing, and is currently responsible for the murders of 10 students and the attempted murder of 1. I've gone on for long enough at this point. I guess I just really need to get out of here somehow. I still don't know what the cult was for. Why was it formed? And what was it trying to summon? Obviously, nobody will look into this further because this sounds too ridiculous. But I'm hoping someone reading this will. If not, then I guess just be careful. You can't trust everyone after all. And that is the end to that story. I'll admit, not as fabulously thrilling as the first one, but simple enough. Let's see what you good people are saying in the chat now. You're seeing a lot of red flags with who is this, Amber? Oh, Alyssa. She seems sweet enough, I think. Maybe needs to work on her people skills quite a bit. And thank you very much for the lemon pepper tea. Thank you for the lemons and ice cream, Azarus. Thank you all for the donations you're giving me. This will definitely help promote the channel. Now, I did consider reading a third story, but for the sake of audio quality, I turned on the AC unit. Well, I turned off the AC unit, and it is quite sweaty in here. So goodness me, I think I'm going to have to call it a night. I hope to see you all next week. I will continue doing these creepy storytellings. As for tomorrow, Choppy will be back playing the Space Marine game. So I hope to see you all then. You all have a pleasant night. Good night.